That's, I think, the biggest tip that we always like to give everybody is really something that you brought us upon already in this podcast, which is to start becoming metacognitively aware of your own thinking process. And that can be done, we recommend, easily through a journal. Okay, just a simple journaling exercise every night, a couple times a week. Okay, where you sit down and you think about something that you're thinking about, a decision you have to make going forward, a decision you had made in the past. It just doesn't matter whatsoever. And you think about what are the things that you're thinking about, what are the things that your brain is doing in making that decision. What are you valuing? Why are you valuing it? What's troubling you? What can't you figure out? Why can't you figure out? What are the unknowns? What are the things you wish you knew, right? How does this relate to a previous problem? How is your brain approaching this problem like it did a previous problem, and so forth? And just keeping a journal that's trying to become more cognizant of your own thoughts and your own thinking process. That, until you start to become aware of what your brain's doing, there's no way you're going to control it to do it better. The first step that we all have to take to controlling our brains is realizing that it's going to do certain things. We're all going to have certain thinking habits. What are they? What's your brain doing? How are you thinking? So just writing a journal a couple times a week makes you self-aware of what your brain's doing. Then you'll start to realize, wait a second, I'm realize that my brain's doing it. I'm about to make a decision. I realize my brain just did that thing that I talked about in my journal a few times. I'm not going to let it do that thing again. I'm going to stop it and make it do something else. But you wouldn't have gotten there if you didn't start to do it. And then that can become a cyclical process, a positive cycle of getting better and better at recognizing more and more things that your brain's doing and starting to whittle down on the bad ones and starting to build up on the good ones. The other thing I would recommend is that to realize that our brains use something called heuristics. A heuristic is what's essentially a framework or a model for solving a problem. Whenever you go to solve any problem, what your brain does, and this is really deep into neuroscience, actually, this isn't a metaphor, this is you actually having on the level of the neurons in your brain. Your brain decides which problem is this one most like that I've solved before. And it uses that same model that you've used before and applies it to this new problem. Now, that's good in a way because many problems have some relationship to prior problems, and your brain already figured out one way to approach this type of problem in your life. And rather than in reinventing how to do it from scratch, it goes back to the old model and uses it. The problem is that the new problem might not really be exactly the same as the old problem. There are probably some important distinctions between the new problem and the old problem. So the old heuristic that you have, though it might be the closest thing that you can come to use, still probably doesn't really fit the new problem. If you become aware of that and realize, wait a second, what is my brain falling back on to use to face this new question or challenge or life problem that I'm facing? And what are the differences between my old model, my old framework, my old heuristic, and this new situation? Where are they different? Then you can start to say, hey, wait a second, you know what? This old model that I've got, it's useful. It's got some elements here, but I got to tweak it first if I'm going to better apply it to this new problem. So those are two things that we ask people to start doing that are extremely useful to becoming better critical thinkers.